We start the 8 o'clock hour live in Montgomery County, Virginia. Virginia Tech Hall of Famer. For years, Hokie radio analyst Mike Burnop will join us here in a moment, and we will get locked in on tomorrow night at Lane Stadium. You like the environment tomorrow night. You're excited.
Well, I love the environment always in Blacksburg. And I think Virginia Tech, given Notre Dame's ills, I think if Virginia Tech plays a clean game tomorrow, I like their chances against Notre Dame.
There you go, Burnop. We welcome Mike Burnop to the show. This portion of the program brought to you by New River Office Supply, by the way, 2-pack, just in case you need to know that. All right, Burnop, first of all, thanks for doing the show. It's always great to see you. Pack's got that vibe tomorrow night, clean game, Hokies win type vibe.
I could see that happening. But first of all, welcome from Bleaksburg, right? Greetings from here. It's a little overcast. It's been raining off and on for a few days, and hopefully we'll have a dry track tomorrow night, but you never know. Yeah, I think both of these teams have struggled somewhat offensively. Their defenses have been pretty good, and it should be a whale of a game. The atmosphere is going to be incredible. When you think about how good it was against Carolina to open up the season, it should be even better. They got this thing going on where they're going to stripe lanes, so each section is going to be different, orange, maroon. So it's going to look great for TV, and hopefully the Hokies can come out and put on a pretty good show.
This Notre Dame team, it's kind of funny, Mike. We've seen now Virginia Tech Notre Dame a number of times here the last 6 years. This will be in game number 4, and it's weird how this ACC schedule works sometimes. We might not see a team for 10 years or so, but it looks like the Irish you see almost every single year. But this is a different Notre Dame team than we saw last year that made it to the college football playoff. They're having a hard time. The number one, injuries have riddled them. But their offensive line, which is normally terrific, big, strong, physical, knock you in the next week, they've had a hard time blocking anybody and establishing the run. And I know that sometimes Virginia Tech's defensive fronts had some issues, but to me that's going to be the kind of the fun game tomorrow night is can Virginia Tech's defensive line continue to bottle up Notre Dame's offensive front?
I agree with you. I mean, when you look at the numbers, I mean, they're only getting 80 yards a game. People complain about Virginia Tech's offense that they can't run the ball and whatnot. But you look at Notre Dame, I mean, they really have struggled running the football. And I think that'll be certainly a key. So far, those front 4 guys on the defense have done a really good job for Justin Hamilton's defense. You know, they're tying up the guys up front so that the linebackers are making the tackles, and they are your leading tacklers. So I think that will be a key. You know, the problem with Notre Dame is, all those guys have gone on to the NFL that they've had on their offensive line the last few years. So they have somewhat struggled, especially at left tackle. And but, they're coming after a loss, so you got a wounded animal coming in here too. So I think all of our coaches had hoped that they had won that game last week against Cincinnati at home, but they didn't. And you just never know what to expect. I think both of these teams are still kind of searching for an offensive identity.
Well, you mentioned Virginia Tech in that light, Mike. I mean, the quarterback situation's come under a lot of scrutiny. We saw Knox Kadum come in there for a play or two a couple of weeks ago against Richmond. Braxton Burmeister missed some open throws. I mean, where's your concern level for where Burmeister and maybe where that offense goes tomorrow night?
Well, I think Braxton obviously has got a lot of potential. I mean, the way he played last year against UVA in that last game kind of showed what he was all about. I thought he played great against Carolina, but he somewhat struggled since. I think against Richmond, he was able to get the ball down the field a little bit. He worked the middle of the field a little bit as well. I think his number one goal was to protect the football, and he's been able to do that with just that one interception. He's missing a guy named James Mitchell, which is so much important, just like Mayer is to Notre Dame's offense, the big tight end target. He's missing him, and he's missing Khalil Herbert from last year. They haven't been able to run the ball as well. So Braxton, I think, has done a good job protecting the ball. You don't want to take chances and get too aggressive against Notre Dame because you're going to get into the teeth of their defense, right? That's where they're good. 9 interceptions, 12 takeaways, good on third down. Those are all top 10 numbers. So you want to play within the game, try to play that field position game and move the sticks and be good on third downs tomorrow night.
Mike, it feels like this has the potential of being kind of an old school, low scoring 2017, one of those kind of games. I mean, you mentioned both teams looking for their identity. The crowd's going to be great. Hopefully you mentioned a fast track with the weather. You never know with the weather. But it just kind of feels like the old school Lane Stadium on fire.
Are you saying Bill Dooley?
I'm talking old school. It just kind of feels like, mud in a face mask kind of game.
Mike, get us one of them offensive type football games tomorrow night.
I might be, listen.
How about that sweep style play to the right?
Sweep style play to the boundary side. Right here, Jeff, this is our running back, Roscoe Coles, getting 4 yards on a sweep style play.
I just think when you turn this game on ACC Network tomorrow night in prime time, if you got used to watching, I think, Virginia and Louisville going up and down the field trying to get to 40 first, I don't think you're going to get that tomorrow night. We may be stunned. You turn it on and watching or listening, and it's 35-31 as we go to the fourth quarter, and you go, what are we talking about? But it just feels, given what we've seen after 5 weeks, that both of these teams, getting the first down, trying to put some kind of drive together, will be a big accomplishment tomorrow night.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, it's been difficult to say the least. And I think when you looked at the offseason and coming into the season, you thought that the Virginia Tech offense was going to be the strength of this team, right? You got most of those guys back. Your receivers are back. Your offensive line is pretty much back with the exception of Darisaw, but what you were missing was obviously Khalil Herbert. And then defensively, you just didn't know because last year was such a crapshoot, right? COVID, Justin Hamilton, no spring practice. The fall was disjointed. He got COVID. He missed a couple of games. So you just didn't know exactly how good the defense was going to be. But, boy, you get a guy like Jermaine Waller back, and you get that transfer Jordan Williams from Clemson, and the defense has been better than people thought. The offense hadn't been quite as good, and so you just never know. It could be one of those games that boils down to special teams. The hidden yardage tomorrow night will be huge. Notre Dame's had a lot of penalties. The Hokies haven't. Those little things like that will add up tomorrow night, and, you got to win the turnover battle for sure.
Mike, you mentioned the defensive side, and certainly Notre Dame's got the premier safety in the country in Kyle Hamilton. I think we all recognize, first-round talent when we see it. Waller is one of those guys who clearly has come back to deliver a message after opting out a year ago. Just in your mind, where's his level and how valuable can he be for the rest of the year with this team on that side of the ball?
Well, I don't know that he opted out so much last year as he couldn't stay healthy, Wes. I mean, he came in, didn't play till like the third game of the year and only played, I think, 2 games at all, partial last year. So he was terrific 2 years ago. He was an all ACC performer, but he knows the part, man. He's all over you like a cheap suit, and the guy can flat out cover. And so I think he's just a tremendous asset to that secondary, which was already pretty deep. So that's kind of the strength of the defense is those guys. But Jermaine, his leadership, 3 interceptions in the first 3 games. Nobody in the country had done that. And I just think he's terrific.
Mike, not to fast forward the clock, because I'm always preaching enjoy each and every week as the season goes by so fast. But it really does seem like this is a critical 8 days for Virginia Tech. I mean, not only do you have the game tomorrow, but it's a non-conference game, which kind of feels late, right? We're middle of October, and you got a game of this magnitude in the middle of your season. And then here comes Pitt off an open date to Blacksburg next week. We've always talked about this is a weird schedule for Virginia Tech because it's so front-loaded with home games. But it really seems like we're in the sweet spot of these 8 days coming up. Monster game tomorrow. The crowd's going to be great. And if you win it, it's great, but it doesn't affect your ACC race. And then here comes Pitt and their high-flying offense the following week to Blacksburg. It just kind of feels like the time is right now for Virginia Tech.
I couldn't you're absolutely right. I mean, it is a critical stretch. I mean, the schedule was crazy. 6 of 7 at home to start the season and 4 or 5 on the road to finish the season. And some tough venues on the road, some big physical teams with good defenses. So, the Hokies got embarrassed up at Pitt last year. And so they got a little chip on their shoulder, looking forward to that coming back. But again, you got to play this game. And whether you win or lose this thing, you got to flip the page quick because obviously Pittsburgh coming in, 7 straight ACC games. The Hokies are undefeated right now in the league, and they control their own destiny. So it's a great opportunity, great problem to have. I know they're looking forward to it. They just feel like this offense hasn't scratched the surface of how good they can be. And if the defense continues to come along and play well, Peter Moore has been a great addition punting the football and flipping fields. So, I think they feel good about this team if the offense can – maybe continue to take some steps forward and be a little more productive. But it is a huge, critical stretch coming up.
There you go. I'm excited. Although I really do like the fact that Pack thinks it's going to square itself up into some I-formation football tomorrow night.
There's 2 games tomorrow night.
It's like Lindsey Nelson and Paul Horning ought to be doing the game. After an exchange of punts, Notre Dame has the ball.
Well, there's 2 games
Moving
tomorrow
ahead
night.
to further action.
That's it. But there's 2 games tomorrow night. The game in Blacksburg feels like it's an old school game, given what I've seen of the offense.
Like when Burnop played?
I'm not going to say that. You did. The other game is
Come
Penn
on.
State.
Come on,
Penn
Don
State.
Strock could throw it all over the yard.
That's it. That's it. And Penn State, Iowa feels like it ought to have snowflakes tomorrow night.
Yeah, Penn State.
I think both those games kind of feel like 17-14, where, hey, one big play late wins the game. Feels that way.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Hey,
by
you
the
might
way,
be right. A low-scoring affair.
Yeah, I meant to ask you this. When Arians was up there the week of the Middle Tennessee State game, what's bigger, the hubcap on a car or Arians' Super Bowl ring of your old teammate?
The ring. It's the ring. Did
As
you
it
see
should
that
be.
thing with the top off of that? I mean, the top came off, and you look inside, and it's like a replica of the stadium and all 4 corners. It's got the 4 scores of the playoff games and the championship game. I think that was remarkable. And what a great time he had, Wes. I mean, he just loved every minute he was here. And we went to basketball practice, talked to Coach Young, saw some of the players over there, some of the recruits. I mean, he just had an absolute ball the whole time he was here and looks forward to coming back.
You know, I tell people all the time, one thing about Bruce Arians, who was a quarterback at Virginia Tech, I guess he's, 2 years behind you, year behind you, something like that. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah. He came in a year behind, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. He
Still
likes
married
2
to the
places.
same woman.
That's key.
That kind of yeah.
Goes back to the
50
first thing I
years.
said today on the air. You got to outkick your coverage. Every American male, you got to outkick the coverage.
Yeah,
BA
BA
outkick.
did that. He's got a great lake house down there. We were down there this summer for his 50th anniversary, and it was just remarkable. What a great time. He's just as humble as he can be, and so happy for all the success he's had.
Yeah, I ran into him 2 summers ago at Lake Oconee, and I said, "You really like coming here?" He said, "There are 2 places I like to go, Lake Oconee and Blacksburg." I thought, well, man,
Life's good.
that's not bad. And you get to coach in Tampa where there's no state tax. So it's a win all day, right, Burnop?
That's where you're going to move soon, huh?
Yeah, okay, that's it. Hey, great to see you. Tell Laser hello, and we'll see you soon.
We'll do it.
All right.
We'll do it. Thanks for having me on, guys. Y'all take care.
Oh, you bet.
Thanks,
Our
Mike.
pleasure. Mike Burnop, Hall of Fame tight end at Virginia Tech, radio analyst up there for, 30-some-odd years. Phenomenal job.
Seen some good games.
Oh,
I think that game tomorrow night's going to be good. I think it's going to be tight. I do. Hokies have a shot.
yeah, you're looking for the old Dan Devine, Bill Dooley game tomorrow night, aren't you?
I'm just conditioned now that if you have a number beside your name and you're going to go play somebody unranked on the road,
Right.
we have seen it every week this college football season. Number 14 Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. Just be careful. Those games are all over the place in the top 25. And by the way, Notre Dame has won 20 consecutive games against the ACC in the regular season. 20 in a row. Now, they had a streak last week snapped by Cincinnati where they had won 26 consecutive home games. That streak gone. So they've won 20 straight against the ACC in the regular season. They've also won 35 straight against unranked teams. That's the second longest streak in the country behind Bama, who's at 100. Let that marinate a second.
Wow. All right, sit tight. On the other side, before Mark Hersley joins us, on this date in college basketball history, Dean Smith retired at Carolina on this date in 1997. We will remember Emporia, Kansas's Dean Smith next on Packer and Durham.